My mother gave my stalker a key to my house to work things out. What happened next made her finally realize how dangerous he really was. "Mom, why is he in my house?" I stood frozen in my doorway, staring at the impossible scene before me. My mother sat on my couch, calmly sipping tea like this was a casual Sunday visit. And standing by my bookshelf, touching my photographs with those hands I'd hoped never to see again, was Raymond Hammond. "Marissa, just hear him out," my mother said, setting down her cup. "You two need to talk." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I have a restraining order against him. How did he even get in here?" I gave him my spare key. She said it so casually, like she just admitted to watering my plants. "He's so heartbroken, honey. He just wants to explain." The words hit me like ice water. "You gave my stalker a key to my house?" "Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm 30 years old and I work as a freelance photographer specializing in wildlife and nature. Until a year ago, I thought I had a decent relationship with my mother. She's always been the type who believes every problem can be solved through communication and compromise. That sounds reasonable, right? Until you realize she applies that logic to situations where compromise is dangerous, like stalking. I met Raymond Hammond 3 years ago at a gallery opening in downtown Chicago where I was displaying my work. He seemed charming at first. He was interested in my photography, knowledgeable about cameras, and attractive in that rugged, outdoorsy way that made my friends jealous. We went on a few dates. He seemed completely normal. Then the cracks started showing. He'd text me constantly, dozens of times a day. If I didn't respond within minutes, he'd follow up with worried messages asking if I was okay. He wanted to know where I was constantly, who I was with, what I was doing. He'd show up at locations I'd mentioned casually in conversation, claiming he just happened to be in the area. After 6 weeks, I ended things. "Raymond, this isn't working. You're too intense for me." His face hardened. "What does that mean? I care about you. Is that a crime?" "No, but I need space, and you're not giving me any. We're done." "You don't mean that," he said, his voice taking on that pleading tone I'd come to recognize. "You're just scared of commitment." "I mean it. Please don't contact me anymore." He didn't stop. The texts continued, now filled with declarations of love and insistence that we were meant to be together. He'd leave gifts at my apartment door in Lincoln Park. Flowers, expensive camera equipment I never asked for. Framed photos of us from our brief dating period that made my skin crawl every time I saw them. He'd wait outside my apartment building, coincidentally appearing whenever I left. I blocked his number. He got a new one. I blocked that one. He started emailing. I blocked his email. He created new accounts. This went on for months, escalating so slowly that I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad. He'd eventually give up, right? Then he started following me to photography shoots. I'd be miles outside the city in the Shawnee National Forest, photographing wildlife in complete solitude, and he'd appear. "Just hiking in the area?" he'd say, with that smile that no longer looked charming. He'd know which trails I was using, which times I'd be there. Information I'd never shared publicly. My best friend, Natalie, was the first to use the word stalking. "Marissa, this isn't romantic persistence. This is stalking. You need to document everything and go to the police." She was right. I started keeping records. Screenshots of messages, photos of unwanted gifts, dates and times of his appearances. Every incident documented with the precision I usually reserved for wildlife behavior patterns. When I had enough documentation, I filed for a restraining order. The court hearing was surreal. Raymond showed up with printed copies of my social media posts, a timeline of our relationship that extended far beyond our 6-week dating period, in his mind, and a lawyer who tried to paint me as leading him on. "My client is guilty of nothing more than loving Miss Marissa," his lawyer argued. "She welcomed his attention, accepted his gifts, and now she's punishing him for caring." My lawyer, Victoria Santos, shut that down quickly. "Miss Marissa dated your client for 6 weeks, ended the relationship clearly, and has since been subjected to 8 months of unwanted contact, surveillance, and harassment. That's not love. That's stalking." I got the restraining order. Raymond was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. No contact of any kind. The judge made it very clear that violations would result in arrest. For 2 months, things were quiet. I started relaxing, thinking maybe the legal intervention had worked. I took on new photography assignments. I even started dating someone new, a fellow photographer named Cameron, who understood what consent actually meant. Then my mom got involved. My mother, Patricia Lawrence, has always had boundary issues. She believes in family harmony above all else, which means she pressures whoever's most reasonable to compromise with whoever's most unreasonable. She'd met Raymond twice during our brief dating period and thought he was such a nice young man. When she found out about the restraining order, her response wasn't concern for my safety. It was disappointment that I'd escalated things legally instead of just talking to him. Honey, don't you think a restraining order is extreme? He just has strong feelings for you. Mom, he was stalking me, showing up everywhere I went, sending hundreds of messages after I told him to stop. But did you really make it clear you wanted him to stop? Sometimes men need very direct communication. I stared at her. I told him, please don't contact me anymore. How is that not clear? Well, you know how sensitive men can be. Maybe he thought you didn't mean it. This was classic Mom, reframing my clear boundary as ambiguous communication to justify someone else's boundary violation. I'd dealt with this my entire life. When a boy in middle school kept snapping my bra strap, she said I should take it as a compliment. When a manager at my first job made inappropriate comments, she said I was being too sensitive. She had an endless capacity for excusing male behavior while holding women responsible for managing it. I moved on with my life, grateful for the legal protection and determined to ignore my mother's terrible advice. I focused on my photography, took on new projects, and let Cameron help me feel safe again. Then, 6 months after the restraining order was issued, everything fell apart. I'd given my mom a spare key to my house years ago for emergencies. I lived alone, traveled frequently for work, and it seemed practical to have someone with access in case of problems. I'd forgotten about it, honestly, since she'd never needed to use it. I should have remembered that my mom's definition of emergency was dangerously broad. One Thursday afternoon, I came home from a shoot in Wisconsin to find my front door unlocked. My first thought was that I'd been robbed. I pushed the door open carefully, phone in hand, ready to call 911. Then I heard voices in my living room. My mother's voice and a male voice I recognized with ice-cold dread. Raymond. That's when we had the confrontation from the beginning of the story. I burst into my living room to find my mother sitting on my couch, like this was a social visit, and Raymond standing by my bookshelf looking at my photos. Mom, why is he in my house? Marissa just heard him out. You two need to talk. I have a restraining order against him. How did he even get in here? I gave him my spare key. He's so heartbroken, honey. He just wants to explain. You gave my stalker a key to my house? Raymond stepped toward me, his expression that familiar mix of hurt and entitled anger. Marissa, if you'd just listen. Don't come near me. I backed toward the door, keeping distance between us. You're violating a restraining order. I'm calling the police right now. Wait! My mom stood up, physically placing herself between me and the exit. Let's all just calm down and talk this through. Raymond drove 2 hours to get here. I don't care. He's not supposed to be within 500 feet of me. You helped him break a court order. Oh, don't be so dramatic. He's not dangerous. He just wants a chance to apologize and explain his feelings. You owe him that much after getting that restraining order. I stared at my mother in disbelief. I owe him nothing. Get out of my way. Marissa, please. Raymond's voice was pleading, that same manipulation he'd used throughout our relationship. Your mom understands that we just had a misunderstanding. If you'd give me 5 minutes. No, get out of my house before I call the police. She's not going to call the police, my mother said confidently. She's just upset. Marissa, honey, put the phone down and let's all sit and talk like adults. I dialed 911. My mother looked shocked, like she genuinely hadn't believed I'd do it. Raymond's expression shifted from pleading to angry in seconds. You're really going to do this after I came all this way? Yes, I am. 911, what's your emergency? I reported the restraining order violation while backing out of my house onto the front porch. My mother followed, still trying to convince me to give him a chance. Raymond stayed inside, probably calculating whether to run or stay. The police arrived within 8 minutes. 2 officers, Sergeant Hayes and Officer Rodriguez, took my statement while my mother tried to explain that this was all a misunderstanding. "Ma'am, did you provide this man with access to your daughter's home?" Sergeant Hayes asked my mother. "I gave him my spare key," she said. "Yes, but only so they could talk." "Are you aware there's an active restraining order preventing him from having contact with your daughter?" "Well, yes, but that seemed like an overreaction. They just needed to communicate." "You helped someone violate a restraining order. That's a crime, ma'am." My mother's face went pale. "A crime? I was trying to help them reconcile by breaking the law," Officer Rodriguez said flatly. "They arrested Raymond for violating the restraining order. He went without much resistance, throwing me wounded looks the whole time, like I was the villain in this scenario." Then Sergeant Hayes turned to my mother. "Ma'am, we need to take you in for questioning regarding your role in facilitating this violation." "Questioning? But I'm her mother. I was trying to help." "You were helping someone stalk your daughter. Let's go." Watching my mother get placed in the back of a police car was surreal. She looked betrayed, like I'd done something to her instead of her having endangered me. She actually said, "I can't believe you're letting them arrest your own mother." As they drove away, I stood in my front yard, shaking, trying to process what had happened. My mother had given my stalker access to my home. She'd let him into my private space, the place I should feel safest, because she thought we needed to work things out. Natalie arrived 20 minutes after I called her. She found me still standing outside and immediately pulled me into a hug. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "My mom gave him a key. She let him into my house." "I know, you told me on the phone. That's absolutely insane. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. She thinks I'm overreacting." "You're not. What she did was dangerous and illegal. Come on, let's get you inside." "Actually, no. Let's go to my place. You shouldn't stay here tonight." She was right. Even with Raymond in custody, the thought of staying in a house he'd been inside, touching my belongings, violating the space my mother had handed him access to, I couldn't do it. I stayed with Natalie that night. Cameron changed my locks the next morning. He was horrified when I explained what happened. "Your own mother helped your stalker break into your house?" She didn't see it as breaking in. She gave him permission. Permission she didn't have the right to give. "Marissa, that's terrifying." It was terrifying. My mother, the person who should protect me, had actively endangered me because she valued reconciliation over my safety. My mother was released after questioning with a citation for aiding in the violation of a restraining order. She called me immediately, not to apologize, but to blame me for her arrest. "Do you know how humiliating that was? Getting fingerprinted like a common criminal? You helped a stalker access my house. What did you think would happen? I was trying to help fix your relationship. Raymond is a nice young man who made some mistakes. If you'd just talk to him." "I had a restraining order, Mom, a court order. You helped him violate it. That's a crime." "Oh, you and your rules and orders. Sometimes you have to look past the paperwork and see the human being underneath." "Raymond loves you." "Raymond stalked me for months. The restraining order exists because he wouldn't stop harassing me after I ended things." "You're exaggerating. He was just persistent." "Stop. Just stop defending him. What you did was dangerous and illegal, and I will never trust you again." "That's very hurtful, Marissa. I'm your mother." "Mothers protect their children. They don't give stalkers keys to their houses. Lose my number." I hung up and blocked her. She tried calling from other numbers showing up at my house, sending relatives to convince me to forgive her. Mistake. I blocked everyone who pressured me and installed a security system with cameras. The legal fallout was significant. Raymond got 6 months in jail for violating the restraining order, with the extended order now lasting 5 years after his release. My mother was convicted of aiding the violation and sentenced to 200 hours of community service plus a hefty fine. She was also ordered to have no contact with me for 2 years as part of Raymond's extended restraining order terms. The family drama was immediate and predictable. Half my relatives thought I was overreacting and that family should forgive family. The other half was horrified by what my mother had done. My Aunt Rachel, my dad's sister, was particularly supportive. "Your mother has always prioritized keeping peace over keeping people safe," Rachel said when she called. "I'm sorry you had to learn that the hard way. You've seen this before?" I asked. "Your whole childhood. Every time someone hurt you or crossed a boundary, she'd pressure you to forgive and move on instead of holding people accountable. This is just the most dangerous version of her usual pattern." Rachel was right. I started unpacking years of my mother prioritizing other people's comfort over my safety. And the pattern was everywhere. She'd always taken the side of whoever was most upset, regardless of who was actually wrong. The relatives who took my mother's side were easy to cut off. If they thought endangering me was forgivable because she meant well, I didn't need them in my life. The ones who understood stayed, and I built stronger relationships with them. Cameron was incredible throughout everything. He helped me feel safe again in my own home, went with me to therapy appointments, and never once suggested I owed my mother forgiveness. "Some things are unforgivable," he said simply. What she did was one of them. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Monroe, helped me process the betrayal. "Your mother violated the most fundamental aspect of the parent-child relationship: protection. She actively endangered you while believing she was helping. That cognitive dissonance on her part doesn't negate the harm she caused. She still doesn't think she did anything wrong, and she may never. Some people are so invested in their worldview that they can't acknowledge when they've caused harm. Your responsibility is protecting yourself, not convincing her to see reality." 6 months after the incident, I sold my house. Too many bad associations, too much violation of what should have been my safe space. Cameron and I found a place together in a quiet suburb of Indianapolis. We didn't tell extended family the exact address. We started fresh. My photography business grew as I channeled my energy into work. I did a gallery show called Boundaries, featuring images of animals in their territories: bears marking trees, wolves patrolling perimeters, birds defending nests. The subtext wasn't subtle, but it was therapeutic. Cameron proposed a few months later, and we got married in a small ceremony at a vineyard in southern Indiana. My mother wasn't invited. Some relatives boycotted in solidarity with her, which actually made the wedding more peaceful. Only people who understood boundaries and respected my safety were there. Raymond was released from jail 18 months after his arrest. The restraining order held, and I had alerts set up to notify me of any violations. He moved to Arizona according to his parole requirements, and I've had no contact since. My mother's no-contact order expired 2 years after it was issued. She immediately tried to reach out, sending cards and letters to my new address that she'd gotten from a relative. Each one followed the same pattern. She was sorry if I was hurt, but she'd only been trying to help, and surely enough time had passed for me to forgive her. No acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong. No understanding that giving my stalker a key was dangerous. Just hurt feelings that I wouldn't absolve her and resume our relationship. I didn't respond to any of it. Silence was its own answer. One letter stood out, though. It arrived on my birthday 2.5 years after the incident. "Marissa, I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I know you're angry, but I truly believed I was helping. Raymond seemed so sincere when he contacted me. He said you two had a misunderstanding and he just wanted to apologize in person. How was I supposed to know he was dangerous? He was always so polite to me. I'm your mother. I deserve a chance to explain. We're family, that has to count for something." I read it once, then put it through the shredder. Cameron found me in my office afterwards, staring at the shredded paper. "Another letter? Same story, she still doesn't get it. Do you think she ever will?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. No, she spent my entire life believing that her intentions matter more than the harm she causes. That's not going to change. Are you okay with that? I have to be. I can't keep waiting for an apology that's never coming, or for her to suddenly understand why what she did was wrong. I have to accept that she's incapable of seeing it. He pulled me into a hug. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Cutting off your mother couldn't have been easy." It wasn't, but staying in contact would have been harder and more dangerous. The truth was, I'd grieved the mother I wished I had. The one who would have protected me instead of endangering me. The one who would have chosen my safety over a stalker's feelings. That mother didn't exist, and accepting that was its own form of loss. But grief didn't mean I owed her access to my life. I'm 32 now, married to someone who respects boundaries, surrounded by friends and chosen family who understand that safety comes before reconciliation. I have a successful photography career. My work has been featured in National Geographic and Wildlife magazine. I teach workshops on nature photography and mentor young photographers trying to break into the field. I have a home that feels secure, a life that feels like mine. Last month, I got a message from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Your mom is in the hospital, heart attack, she's asking for you. I read the message 3 times, waiting to feel something. Guilt, obligation, concern. All I felt was tired. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't send flowers or a card. I sent a single message to my cousin. I hope she recovers, but I won't be visiting. Please don't contact me about this again. Some people would call me cold, unforgiving, a bad daughter. Those people didn't have their safety handed to a stalker by the person who should have protected them. I've built a good life, a safe life, and I refuse to feel guilty for protecting it. Natalie asked me recently if I ever miss my mother. I miss the idea of her, I told her. I miss having a mom I could trust, but that person never really existed. She was always more concerned with keeping the peace than keeping me safe. Do you think you'll ever regret cutting her off? I thought about that. About Raymond standing in my living room because my mother gave him a key, about the violation of my safe space, about every time in my childhood when she chose someone else's comfort over my well-being. No, I said, I don't think I will. Some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. And some relationships aren't worth saving, even when they're with family. My mother taught me an important lesson, just not the one she intended. She taught me that blood relation doesn't guarantee protection. That family isn't an excuse for endangering someone you're supposed to love. She taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away. So here's my question for you. If your parent gave your stalker access to your home to help them reconcile with you, could you ever trust them again? I couldn't, and I've never regretted that choice. Because at the end of the day, I chose myself, my safety, my peace. And that's something I'll never apologize for.